So I've been falling to sleep to a little show you guys might remember.
Oh, yeah?
Does the name Xena tickle the brain?
Warrior Princess, my favorite.
Lucy Lawless at her most powerful, yes.
Yeah, so...
Not her most powerful. She's really good in Ash vs. Evil Dead also. She's good in everything. Lucy Lawless rules, and so does Xena.
She really does.
So I've been like trying to like reset my sleep schedule, so it's like I was like, what's something I can like not really like pay attention to, but I can just like have on while I'm trying to like be tired.
Yeah.
And so I was flipping through because I've been on that sci-fi binge too. Then I saw Xena, Warrior Princess, and I was like, oh shit. And then there was Hercules, and I was like, oh shit.
You got them both.
Yes.
That way you can watch the crossover episodes.
So yeah, I was just threw on Xena, and it's just as bad and wonderful as I remember.
So cheesy.
It's glorious.
It really is.
It changed me as a boy.
She's Xena's like the original for the 90s anyway. I feel like the badass chick for TV.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I'm almost certain that that's how she's remembered if she isn't like explicitly that.
I can't think of like a comparable character for the time.
And for the time, no.
Like off the top of my head.
We didn't have like strong female characters like that until like the late 2000s.
Certainly not for a weird ass like fantasy historical.
It like existed in a vacuum.
Almost sitcom style of show.
It's 100% like a sitcom.
It's supposed to be like, they really don't.
It's adventure.
Bother like trying to tell you what the setting is. The intro is just like in the time of like gods and kings and monsters, and it's
when
like,
the hell was that?
Yeah, like, what does that mean? And then it's just sort of like kind of Greece maybe, but also like that general Mediterranean-ish area,
A lot of it is just the woods.
Yeah, it's they don't really bother like they like name drop stuff, but it's more of just like, do you remember that battle that like was real? Yeah, I was there. Let's go fight this like Gorgon or whatever the fuck.
You were at Thermopylae? That's crazy. Now we have to face the Minotaur.
Yeah, we gotta go fight
Pericles.
We gotta go fight the like 500th band of thieves we've come across.
Oh yeah,
these ne'er-do-wells who are just everywhere in the woods on the trail.
This is
so good. I mean, I'm not like shitting on it, but I love it. It's
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that leads us pretty well into what I want to talk about, which is that we're doing the One Piece reread Part 2 right now, and
please loop that back into
cheesy nonsense. It's cheesy nonsense that I love.
And with that, welcome back to Scryer's Room. I am your host, Famfare.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mario.
And today we're going to be going to Part 2 of One Piece.
Yes. So we're still real early on. Don't worry. As we go on, I think I will be covering more than just like a single arc per thing. But right now I want to talk about the Buggy arc. Because in terms of like starting your story, this is like a great turning point moment that I feel like people can learn from. So previously we've had Zoro join the crew, and we met Kobe, and he was like working with Alvida, and now he's going to go become a Marine. And then it's just Luffy and Zoro in like in a dinghy just going off looking for a navigator now, because both of their backstories of how they got to where they are, and then I got lost, and now we're here.
As one does.
But in each of those little parts, we get like a little taste of the characterization and the pattern that we're going to see evolve over One Piece. Because when you start something, especially something for like a shonen type audience, and this extends to all storytelling really, the first couple of things that happen need to be establishment. And that's really what every single one of those story arcs were for. We established the Marines as an extant body. We established pirates as an extant body. We established some of them are dicks on both sides, and Luffy beat up both of them for their dickishness. And what we see happen again and again is once Luffy observes like a horrible cruelty or like a crime against freedom, he's like, oh, well then I have no reason not to throw hands with this motherfucker.
As one does.
This isn't politics. This is simply this guy's an asshole and he's trying to make everyone's lives worse. And so far it's working out great. But starting this arc, we also get introduced to Nami. So I think I brought this up. We get introduced to her. She's robbing my favorite character, Buggy the Clown. Buggy is the first setup we see for many of the future arcs, where the bad guy is the leader of the enemy crew or enemy marines or whatever, and due to some portion of their nature, they end up at odds with Luffy generally, and then they have a big fight, and then the equivalent characters from each crew get to fight each other. And that's just action figures mashing together, but
pretty good formula.
In terms of shonen formulas, it's built up correctly because they're two pirate crews. What are they supposed to do?
The swords guy fight the swords guy.
Yeah.
But he's a clown swordsman, so he's doing all sorts of circus shit.
Well, in
I love it.
This also gets evolved further in the Sanji arc, where we get introduced to him. But really, it is just it's slightly more than this is the enemy team, so we fight them. It's these guys are not only the enemy team, but at least one of them who's in charge is a dick, and so we fight them. So the arc introduces Nami as a navigator and thief, following a writing rule I think everybody should try to follow. It's one that I'm sure I've talked about on here before. I definitely talked to Tony about this. Every character should be introduced at their most self.
Yes.
Some people say their most extreme self, but that I feel can be interpreted as to them suffering from drama, when that isn't what we need. What we need is to know the character.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope saying the most extreme self, because if someone is kind of doting and you make them extremely doting, they seem panicky.
Yeah.
When they're not supposed to be panicky, they're supposed to be doting.
Yeah. But at her most self, Nami is introduced. At first, she appears to be a girl in distress, set adrift at sea in an empty dinghy with only a treasure chest. And then two pirates in a slightly larger vessel come across her in the water, and she begs them, please, you can have the treasure chest. I just need water. Please save me. And the two pirates are like, oh yeah, we'll save you, all right. And they put her on her boat, and she's like, and the treasure chest is back there, but it's too heavy for my weak arms to carry. And so the two pirates who are on the boat get off of their boat and get onto her boat to try to lift the treasure chest, at which point she sort of just shoves off from her old boat, and they open the treasure chest and it's empty.
Naturally.
And they're like, what the hell is this? And she's like, yeah, I'm robbing you guys. This is a robbery.
Pirates.
I upgraded to a better boat with your guy. You guys actually have treasure in here, which I really like. But she was already sailing away, chest empty. The pirates wanted to give chase and be like, oh, well, we'll get your ass still. But they can't, because she was waiting where she was waiting, because she knew there was about to be a squall. A massive sudden storm, and she was right on the edge of it. And then as soon as they're like, we're gonna come after you, and they start paddling, a storm comes and they get sank. And these two guys are just in the sea. And she uses her knowledge of navigation, her abilities with manipulation, and her wiles as a thief. She's just her most self. That's a perfect character introduction.
What a scoundrel.
Yeah.
What a crafty, intelligent scoundrel.
But equally importantly, it also sets up the next thing to happen. Because who did she burgle? Two of Buggy the Clown's men.
Segues.
We're segueing into it. The next introduction, I feel, uses that honesty of character where we're shown right away who a character really is, to set audience expectations. And this is where I feel One Piece really starts to shine as this is what One Piece is about. Because when Buggy the Clown is introduced, his ability is hidden. He seems to have the force or something. He grabs one of his guys, and then we just see the guy grasping at his throat, and he floats in front of the cannon, and Buggy's like, now shoot the cannon to kill this guy. And then they kill him. They get his ass. And then he's magic somehow. This guy's got powers. He's dangerous. A respected pirate with a whole crew that respects and fears him. He has a proclivity to violence, a love for shooting things with his cannons. Much like our hero Luffy, he also is so obviously confident that he does things that look stupid. When he captures Luffy and Zoro steps up to him, we know that Zoro is famously the pirate killer. And Buggy is empty-handed and walks up to him and is like, all right, come on, like pirate killer Zoro, take a swing. What we know about Zoro at this point is that after 9 days of starvation, he was more than powerful enough to take care of every other Marine on the island that he was introduced on.
Pretty strong guy.
He's a pretty strong guy. We're understanding him to be an equal to Luffy in correct conditions, where he's not been starved or anything. Well, Zoro's strength isn't fully real in that regard, but we have that context, is what I mean. He's so strong that the villain who imprisoned him had to blackmail him to arrest him, also.
Yes. They were starving him so they could actually execute him because they wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah.
Luffy knows Zoro is a big deal in this scene, and we know Zoro is a big deal. But this clown guy just is like, no, you are not.
I am so confident that you can't hurt me that I will let you swing first.
So Zoro slashes him, and everyone knows something isn't right. But even Zoro is like, yeah, that's normally what happens. I get stepped to, and then I cut them into 4 pieces with my 3 swords. This is not a big deal for me. Because that's what happens. He just he ices Buggy as soon as things, like, escalate from his perspective. But once he turns around, and he's like, all right, Luffy, let's get the fuck out of here. Suddenly, he's coughing up blood. He's injured. Buggy's hand has stabbed through some of the more blood-filled and important sections of his torso with a big-ass knife. Turns out Buggy's also eaten a devil fruit like Luffy, the first one we've seen an enemy have, and it's the opposite of the gum-gum fruit in every way. The crew at this point has to escape and regroup because, like, Luffy has been put into a cage that, like, the key is around around the first mate's neck, and the bars are too thick for Zoro to just slash through. So they pretty much turn a cannon on the crew to create a big smoke cloud, and they pick up the cage and they run away.
Which, his fruit is the chop fruit?
Yes.
So, he's immune to cutting damage, basically.
Yeah. Buggy is the same as...
And they can float, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why he's able to grab that guy.
Well, it's because so he can just sort of, like, disassemble himself, like, at will.
Yeah, and the parts of him that are disassembled, he can float pretty much at will. The only downside is that his feet need to be on the ground.
That's the limit.
Because, it's a restraint, but that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, his feet, wherever his feet, that's the anchor point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when the crew escapes, Buggy's so confident he sends out one of his own elite crewmen, his first mate, Moji the Lion Tamer, who's riding a lion the size of a bear that actively, like, it punches buildings. It's a big lion. It's a threat. At this point, like, tension has never been higher. And we've learned a lot from very little but quite efficiently given information. This leads into the pattern that, like, helps fill out the world of One Piece. Tension is mounted, but the climax hasn't yet begun. We're not in the big fight. So then you get a weirdo character pathos scene. There's a lot of these in One Piece. I don't mean the choice in this is weird. I mean the character is, like, sort of weird and unique in, like, a not mainline, cool story character kind of way. The flashback to Zoro's backstory and first, like, dream declaration, and Kobe the cowardly pirate cabin boy wanted to be a Marine, those are, like, the kinds of, like, weirder choices.
Yeah.
In this arc, we get Shushu, the dog forever protecting the business of his master, who died 3 months ago.
So sad.
It's just sitting outside of the pet food store, forever, like, guarding where his master will never return. And I believe this is based on a well-known story IRL, but I didn't...
Yeah, I don't know the actual folklore, but yeah, that's a story.
It's Hachiko.
Hachiko,
there
yes.
It is, yeah.
They have a statue to him. This is a real dog.
That was a real-ass dog. Like 10 years or something.
What an OG.
Yeah.
It waited every day.
One of the bestest boys who ever lived.
At the train station, I think?
Yeah.
It's really sad.
As far as pathos...
Also is the inspiration of Seymour Butts.
Yes.
From Futurama.
Yeah, Seymour.
Oh, yes.
The The pathos in like these stories begins to like ramp up from here. And I wouldn't call it like a power level progression, but like a tragedy level progression. Every time that we get another pathos story, it gets a little bit more tragic. Moji brings his lion to hunt down all the Straw Hats, and he burns down the business that Shushu was guarding. And Luffy sees this dog barking and crying and looking at the flames, and immediately he tracks down Moji. This is the key lesson of dealing with Luffy. Once he sees you express cruelty to the innocent or powerless, the next thing you're seeing is hands.
Yeah, God forbid you make one of his friends cry.
Yeah.
That's the meme.
I mean, he saw the dog cry, and that was it.
Yeah,
this dog bit him, and he was like, oh, it's a sort of a rude dog. And then like he had its backstory explained to him, and he's like, well, I guess I get it then. That was enough. So imagine how much angrier he is when it's somebody that he spends literally every day with.
Yeah, that's funny.
It gets worse. One Piece, what it does... so first, Luffy beats Moji pretty easily. He reveals the power scales to not necessarily be as biased towards the enemy as once believed, even though the tension has risen. Because as we're running from, like, Buggy the Clown, the implication of that lion showing up is this lion is also a threat. And then Luffy drives its head into the ground like a nail. What One Piece does really well is making every character very motivated. And that motivation becomes like an expression of their core character. A motivated character is willing to go further and push themselves and sacrifice and bleed to see what they want done. That's why especially main characters have such lofty dreams informed by tragic backstories in One Piece. When I heard motivation as like a young writer being so important, I didn't really understand what it meant. Everything that your character, like, drives your character to do anything is motivation. And even if you haven't done the work of actually thinking out what your character's motivation is, they probably have one.
Yeah, if you can't answer the question of somebody wants something but is having trouble getting it, you know, it can be as simple as that.
It can be as simple as Luffy got really mad there.
And there's motivation.
That's motivation. Yeah. That guy's a dick. And
I'm angry and I gotta do something about it.
That's what motivation is. It's just the emotional force driving your character's action.
Yeah. I feel like, to your point, is it, like, their motivations / like, usually a singular character trait of one of the main crew. Like, they're attached. So, like, Nami, for example, she's very greedy.
Yeah.
But she has a
reason for that.
Yeah.
But she is very greedy.
Yeah.
But you find out, like, that has roots in something, like, very important to her.
Their motivations aren't just surface level. They tie into the story. And that's something that I think that everyone should really chew on as if you're working on anything creative. Because your characters that you create, even if you, like, can't think of, like, what your character's motivation is, if you can think of that person, like they exist sort of formed, you can get a motivation out of them. All you need to think is, how would they react to anything? And that will inform you of, like, well, how do they react to this other thing? Why would they react differently? Do you want them to have a bigger reaction? Well, what would cause them to have a bigger reaction? It's just like the story will unfold itself if you just ask the questions.
Yeah.
And motivation is a thing that will help you learn more about your characters and about what your story needs to be about than anything. And One Piece is fucking great at establishing motivations. It's not so good at making the motivations like a perfectly empathetic ideal that you can be like, wow, this really means a lot to me. But all the characters are definitely intrinsically motivated.
I think it's pretty easy to, like, pinpoint to, for each, like, of the main Straw Hats. Like,
yeah. And that's part of what One Piece does really well to connect to an audience.
Yeah. But
because their motivations, while they are simple, they are, like, something that would cause these characters to live this life.
Yeah, just, like, another quick example, like, and, like, one that's, like, a negative, air quotes, thing about them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Nami, greedy, but she's got a really good reason.
Yeah.
But Usopp, he's a liar.
Yeah. He's got a great reason.
But he also has a really good reason to be a liar.
Yeah.
But he is a fucking liar.
Every character in One Piece is handled with a level of care that I do not see in many of the trashy things that I read.
Yeah.
And so I really can appreciate when the characters are actually motivated and those motivations form like the core of them. Their flaws become less of just like a thing that it's not a kryptonite, it's just a factor of their life, you know? And it's exactly that. She's greedy, but like the reason is good, but it does make her do things like make an enemy out of Buggy the Clown. Just so that she could get a map that she could then sell for more money. That's what's going on with Nami in this right now. She's trying to rob Buggy. Now, even the civilians and side characters have like really strong motivations in One Piece. Like Choo Choo, the dog, or the mayor of this town. Like at this point, we see him suiting up in like old-timey armor with a spear that has like not even like a knife, like a metal triangle, like taped to the tip as a spear. Like he's suiting up, preparing to die fighting Buggy before he lets him just destroy the town. Because Buggy's just like turning his special cannons on the town to blow up the buildings because he thinks it's rad. Buggy's kind of a dick like that.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick like that.
But even with their motivations, Luffy is still a pirate and acts selfishly. He is like a selfish character in person who just believes in goodness and enforces goodness. He didn't exactly think to investigate if the town needed saving from Buggy at all. That wasn't really a factor. He kind of didn't care that Buggy was just like, I've taken over this town and I'm going to drain its resources dry. Luffy more so just sort of showed up and then got framed by Nami, who was like, oh, thank goodness, my boss is here. You take care of these guys chasing me. And then they grab his ass and throw him in a cage, and Luffy's like, what the fuck's going on here?
God bless.
But, like, he wanted to get this navigator to join his crew, however, so then he was like, well, I know what I need to do now. I need to get her what she wants so that she'll give me what I want, which is joining my crew as my navigator so I don't get lost again. Once he sees the cruelty of Buggy, however, he becomes motivated to drive him out, regardless of whether or not, like, he's a bad guy. Having your main character behave this way, where they need to find motive to deal with certain types of plots, isn't something you can lean on without having more to say. Which is really important and good that they used it here with Buggy, because Buggy, once we learn a bit more about him, is somebody intrinsically tied to the main plot and Luffy. This isn't just...
Yeah, he's actually kind of a big deal. One thing I like about One Piece is that your power level is only really limited by your ability to, like, think about how your powers work. So a lot of characters get power-ups not because they, like, you know, DBZ powered up. They're just, oh, I figured out how to use this more creatively, and now I'm a bigger fucking threat. And Buggy's one of those characters.
Well, that's a thing that I'd really like to talk about, because in terms of, like, character power progression, a lot of things treat it as if, like, okay, once this new threat is handled, like, that's, like, the base power level of things. Or once there's a new threat, we need to increase the power level of things. One Piece doesn't do that. What it does is the motivation and creativity of the characters need to be, like, tested by more powerful enemies who themselves come from a backstory where their motivation and creativity are tested. And that's really what I like about, like, power scale. This is one thing Brando Sando really does really well.
Yeah.
It's not about, like, oh, well, she's just that good at being a Magneto. Well, she needed to get better at that time, so she did. She needed to practice more, and she really enjoyed it, giving her motivation to practice more, which made her more powerful, but that isolated her from other things, which led the story. I'm obviously talking about Mistborn for this character, but One Piece is... That's just how the power level works. Your motivation and your creativity will drive you more than anything. Being willing to go further makes you more powerful than a guy who just has a broken-ass skill. And that's really what this arc is about.
But One Piece is also really good about how our heroes have, like, surmounted so many odds, and then it's just all of a sudden, like, well, that's adorable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go get stronger.
Yeah, there are guys who are so much stronger than you, it's crazy.
There's a couple of times where, like, main characters get spanked out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what?
Excuse me? I thought this was the main character.
Yeah, I guess one of the first, like, real power-ups that I'm aware of, because I've only read part of One Piece, is, like, hockey, the introduction of hockey.
Yeah.
And they basically established that, like, regular dudes can do a thing to become basically, like, you know, go beyond what a regular person can do.
Yeah.
So it's not just devil fruits that give you superhuman powers.
Exactly.
You can just be a bad enough dude and get them.
In fact, one of the things that the most powerful characters say is that devil fruits are cool, but hockey is the only real power. Having your devil fruit, I'm sure, is fun and it informs your fighting style, but it's more of like your character design than your power level.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, we're in early One Piece where if you don't have hockey, the guy made out of fire is fully untouchable. Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Yeah.
So he uses the opportunity to flesh out his world and the people living in it, like Shushu and the mayor, and allows certain chapters to follow different characters to inform the audience more about like the world of One Piece and let the audience care about the villains being defeated. The world building and establishing of stakes is crucial in early portions of your own writing, and having motivated, interesting characters inhabit your story is simply the recipe for success. If you have an interesting, motivated character who like exists in a world that you are able to like immerse your reader in and have stakes that the reader cares about, they're basically hooked. That's the hook. And having a thesis of becoming King of the Pirates is really good, but more so the idea of like he's working for this, so he acts this way, makes every arc into a little bit of him proving whether or not he's worthy of being King of the Pirates. And it doesn't read like that all the time from the beginning, because Luffy is like a comedic character generally. We don't get any of his like internal like dialogue. We're never in his head. He's just...
He doesn't think, he just acts.
Yeah.
He's like shown character.
It's like, if you could find some internal dialogue of Luffy, it's probably just a handful of times out of the 1,000+ chapters there are.
The only time that I can think of that might have been an internal dialogue with Luffy is when he was fighting NL and thought of, like, he needs to empty his mind to fight him. But he might have also just been saying that out loud, defeating the purpose.
But, like, yeah, either way, his thought was, like, I need to have no thoughts. And he did that and it worked, but
he couldn't fight
either.
Yeah. Because he couldn't think to punch him.
It was a very stupid situation.
It was a bit,
It was very funny, though.
That's pretty funny.
All right. Next thing I want to talk about is subverting expectations, because we've talked a lot about setting expectations with our motivations and stuff. Subverting an expectation means that your audience is primed for one thing, instead of that thing that feels obvious, you give them the thing that does happen and takes away the power of what you expected. Some people think that means you set something up and then you just don't do it. That's not subverting an expectation effectively. That is, in one sense, it is subverting an expectation. It's just removing from your story rather than adding to it.
Yeah, I listened to one of Brando Sando's lectures on this, and he says that the true way to do that, the best way to subvert, is that you promise them one thing, and then you give them something else they actually want.
Exactly, yes. And when you subvert, if you do, like, some people think if you actually subvert an audience's expectation, that is also, like, that means that was good, and if you didn't like it, that means that you can't appreciate it or something.
Yeah, usually they won't use that term unless they came off well. A lot of times they'll just say it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a bad subversion is just dumb.
But there are bad subversions that, like, we can name in, like, I mean, fucking, I don't want to harp on the same 5 movies that I despise.
So I feel like if you're going to, like, generalize it, because unless something, like, actually felt like a subversion, like, my brain's not going to think of it that way. So, like, if I see an attempt at one, then my brain is just going to go, well, that's just an ass-pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly, it's not a subversion, it's an ass-pull.
Which, like, an ass-pull doesn't necessarily need to be a subversion of something, but it's like...
It came out of nowhere.
A lot of ass-pulls are just poor subversions.
A poor subversion that I can name that I don't want to harp on this movie all the time because it's well and over with. All the talking about it is done. In the second of the sequel trilogy for Star Wars.
Yeah, episode 8.
Yep.
Where the scene specifically, Finn is like driving a speeder or a ship of some kind in order to like smash into the enemy's drill to like suicide run, blow it up so that the drill doesn't get through the door before all the people get out.
Yeah.
And then instead of that, the female character who doesn't show up in any of the other movies comes and hits him as he is like trying to do this, crashing both of their vehicles as the drill is still going. And she's like, "Oh no, we're not going to save everybody by doing a suicide run that would save everybody. We're going to do it through love." And then she kisses him, which wasn't set up at all. They didn't have any kind of chemistry. They weren't very fun to watch.
It was so out of left field. And furthermore, that scene is also extremely frustrating because, like, I love a good martyr. I've always identified with martyr characters of, like, I'm going to sacrifice myself for my friends. King Catan in Gurren Lagann made me fucking weep.
He was so cool.
He was so cool. And so to not only not have him do that, but invalidate the sacrifices all the other guys did just like 5 seconds ago, you basically just said, hey, that thing we were all have solidarity together, we're going to united attempt to rush this guy for the sake of a greater victory, invalidate your sacrifice entirely.
Exactly.
Fuck you, you're not a main character, your death means nothing.
And everyone,
who the fuck writes like that?
And everyone would have died if Luke Skywalker didn't show up as a Force apparition. And that is what I mean by, like, a subversion that doesn't work. Yeah. Because that was a subversion.
God, I'm getting mad just thinking about it.
Don't worry about that right now. We're talking about One Piece. That's like a subversion that I would describe as not being effective.
I thought you were going to say Snoke getting just chopped in half.
Snoke getting chopped in half is a different kind of failure of subversion, I think. Because in that case, him getting chopped in half, the subversion of, like, oh, we expected him to be more important, like, that's all thrown away in order to set up, like, Kylo Ren is more of a villain, and then they just also don't do that. So it's a subversion that also
Palpatine's back.
Is supposed to act as setup. Subversions acting as setup, that can be really cool if you use them properly and effectively. So I say, like, good a lot, and what I mean by good is generally enjoyable and effective. Those are the two avenues of
writing
good.
is formulaic, and it's like a recipe. It's like cooking.
There are rules.
And some people decide, hey, I don't like this ingredient or have this ingredient, so I'm going to use something else entirely, and they think, I wonder why the dish came out like shit.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand.
I love looking at cooking blogs and things and seeing the 1-star reviews where it's like, I completely removed all the apples from this apple pie and replaced them with carrots. Why is it so bad?
I just used cumin instead of cinnamon. I didn't have any cinnamon. Why are my cinnamon rolls taste like shit?
You can apparently actually make a pretty convincing faux apple pie out of Ritz crackers and some other things.
Well, there you go.
Or carrots a part of it?
Yeah.
No? I actually got kind of excited. I was like, damn, maybe they're just that bad at cooking.
No, it was literally like Ritz crackers, like pie crust, like apple pie spices, and like sugar and water, and that's like it.
Huh.
That sounds pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, it's like some sort of like Depression era, like.
Oh yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah,
that adds up.
That's a struggle meal. All right, so but back to subverting expectations. Your audience's expectations are informed by an entire lifetime of media outside of what you're showing them, and therefore are subconsciously making assumptions because that's what the human brain does. It seeks patterns and, like, expects certain things, and that's why, like, subversion works in both a good and bad way. You show, and when you, like, make the actual assumptions, like, work for you, you show them the scene as it plays out instead of following what should happen. You show them something else. When I bring up subverting not equaling good, I mean that subversion is another form of payoff, and payoff requires setup. And how do you make setup and payoff good and unexpected? The only way that it works is it has to come from character. Setup and payoff outside of character is a Chekhov's gun, where it's a thing that shows up and therefore it will take place later.
Yeah, you wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't relevant. You wouldn't go out of your way to show something unless you wanted to know the people that it existed.
Yeah.
And then why did it actually exist? Well, because it's going to be important later.
And in things like the Star Wars thing that like the suicide run that didn't work out, her character, if she was shown to be more of, like, if she had more in common or interest or, like, just chemistry with Finn, perhaps we would have bought it more. But more importantly, it would actually make a lot more sense if there was any other way for them to survive. There simply wasn't. If he didn't do that, they were all going to die, and she prevented him from doing that based off of nothing. It's not very good.
It's just a dumb scene. It's just dumb writing.
And whether or not you agree with it, what I mean by good is it wasn't very enjoyable and it wasn't very effective. It didn't make me feel the emotion that the director wanted me to feel. It made me feel something else. That's not effective. So when you have, like, setup and payoff coming from character, a thing to remember is that a character's power level in fiction is irrelevant when they hold proper motivation and are given an opportunity they would take advantage of. A bad subversion is almost always at its core a character problem, and a good subversion, like any good setup and payoff, is reinforced by retrospect. A character has an item, not because they were given that item at random, but because they behave a certain way, leading the item to being where it needs to be later. This is like a basic concept of setup and payoff through character. And One Piece does it pretty well, I think. But what if, for example, you're on your third villain on an increasing power scale, and so far your main character has been essentially untouched? And this villain becomes so clearly threatening, the heroes have to flee. One of them injured so badly, they can't move. Like, Zoro runs out of blood enough that he passes out.
Yeah, he gets stabbed pretty bad.
One of the gooeyest parts to get stabbed. The abdomen. And while Luffy beat up Elvita while laughing and calling her ugly, and he carried Helmeppo weeping in a headlock, barely even trying to evade capture from an insane jacked man who welded an axe to his arm, this guy has powers. You as the audience know this fiendish monster will not go down without a fight. And as the Straw Hats approach for the final confrontation, he loads up his cannon with the special Buggy Ball. We saw it destroy a whole row of buildings. In another story, this would be something the heroes dodge, or perhaps the gunner would take too long and they stop him somehow, or someone sneaks around and, like, puts out the fuse before it fires or something.
Some sort of crafty little scheme.
In One Piece, Luffy inflates like a balloon, and when the cannonball shoots him, he bounces it right back at them, which blows up the whole building containing the special Buggy Balls, which blows up all of Buggy's minions.
Got his ass!
Got his ass. Mm-hmm. And he does that because that's what Luffy does. That's good. I really enjoyed that. That is a good setup and payoff for a thing that we're told is very dangerous, and then we see how Luffy handles it.
Which is how he handles everything, like,
there's
straightforwardly and directly. Like, that's...
I like this about One Piece. How many problems end up being solved because Luffy's just a rubber man and he's intelligent. Well, he's crafty and creative with his rubberness.
And this allows the fight also to escalate to the next point, where we get to see our first, like, setup for the pattern to emerge, where I have a sword guy, he fights the enemy sword guy. We get Kabaji the acrobat, who rides a unicycle, and, like, he's a sword swallower, and he throws tops. And then we have Luffy facing down Buggy, the enemy captain. We, as the audience, have seen Luffy do similar things, and it seems that it seems obvious he would do that now. But Buggy's still standing. They won't put him down. He's as strong as a main character.
Which it's important. The chop fruit, like, makes you basically immune to, like, cutting.
Yeah.
He can still be hurt.
Oh, yes.
But the problem is, like, even though, like, you can still punch him and shit, like, he just will detach.
Separate and dodge,
He's preemptively just, like, floating away.
He's like a Lego man.
And it's hard to keep track of, like, because there doesn't seem to be a real limit to how many bits he can control at once.
Like, Buggy is, like, low-key super powerful. Yeah. Like, they throw Luffy against what is a potentially extremely powerful villain, but he's his arrogance and his lack of creativity.
It's his character.
It's his character, exactly. That's flawed, that makes his power not as powerful as it potentially could be.
Now, during Zoro's fight, we also still don't really get to see how powerful he is. He's nursing a heavily wounded torso, and then when the other guy's like, oh, you're going to blame that for when you lose, he then cuts open his torso more with his sword to be like, you don't call me a bitch, you're a bitch.
Damn.
Yeah, Zoro goes hard.
Zoro's not a very smart character, but in that way, he's really cool. Even so heavily wounded.
Toxic masculinity is cool.
Well, it's about showing his motivation, and, like, his, like, in terms of, like, storytelling, it's just increasing his power level.
Yeah, he doesn't want anyone to say that he isn't the best because for X, Y, and Z reasons.
Yeah.
Is Zoro that much different than like, how much internal dialogue does Zoro get? I feel like he has a little more than Luffy, but not a lot.
Zoro typically will get his internal dialogue when, like, later when he has to learn how to cut metal.
But
But otherwise, I don't really think he has much.
I feel like any time Zoro has internal dialogue, it's just like, I gotta figure out how to cut better.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. So he's very similar to Luffy in that regard. Like, he's just, instead of punch, I'm just gonna cut it.
Yeah, and even so, even like having half gutted himself, once he does one attack at full strength, Kabaji's done. He wins immediately. He uses one Musou and it's done.
Hell yeah.
Pretty
good move.
And then following that, because he half gutted himself, Zoro has to go lie down for the rest of the fight. Good luck, Luffy. Luffy fighting Buggy here, however, that raises the tension even further. It reveals Buggy to have known Shanks. Red-haired Shanks, the guy who was my best friend and pirate mentor? Yes, Luffy. And if you want to know more, you'll need to defeat his opposite. A man who dresses as a clown, who hates being laughed at. A cruel man with no dream beyond his own ego. A devil fruit like his, and worst of all, he uses knives. Blades can hurt Luffy, unlike bullets and cannons. We've reached the point in One Piece where more often than not, battles will be fought with creativity and motivation. The devil fruits are not just powers with one function, it's up to the user to find it. And the more motivated the character is, the more likely they are to creatively use their abilities and fight harder than their opponent. There's obviously other factors, but unless the author seeks to inform you or intends to show you a massive chasm between characters' threat levels, creativity and motivation are what decide these things. And once Buggy damages Luffy's hat, which he loves, Luffy's motivation spikes.
Yeah.
Not only had Buggy damaged his treasure hat, but he literally spits on it, and and Shanks is a bitch too, and I've always hated him.
This is the anime equivalent of Stinkmeaner stepping on Granddad's shoes in Boondocks.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. I smell new shoes.
Well,
Buggy is the hater of the year.
He really is.
I was also going to add, going back to the backstory, is Buggy's is also integral to him.
I'm about to bring it up. Yeah.
All right, I don't want to spoil it.
Motivation is just a way of saying why a character does anything, and One Piece is a beginner's course in it from the get-go. It establishes the driving force motives of dreams early on, and attempting to crush those dreams is met with our main character's rage, telling you those are bad guys. And to be clear, anger is a motivation, like I was saying. That's what motivation is. It's incredibly important, and I was not aware of it for its importance for a good portion of my early writing career. I didn't realize that the things that I thought weren't motivation were indeed motivation. So, even your main characters, every action your main characters take has a why, and it informs you of, how they take the action. Luffy couldn't hit Buggy until Buggy attacked his hat, and Shanks, because his motivation increased, Luffy attacked out of anger, and unexpectedly, Buggy, who had been dodging his punches to the face by making his head fly off, Buggy then gets kicked right in the nards.
Hell yeah.
Luffy's like, "Don't talk shit, old man," and kicks him right in the nuts.
Wow.
That actually hurts him. And here, we get the flashback to Buggy's backstory. Buggy's early pirate days, when he was on a pirate crew with Shanks. At this point, it's omitted, they don't bring it up, that they were on the Pirate King Gold Rogers crew together.
Oh wow.
They really were some A-game young bloods. It was crazy.
They're like cabin boys,
yeah,
But
basically.
still.
Yeah.
Now, he blames Shanks for accidentally causing him to eat the chop fruit. He had set up a fake fruit that he ate in front of everybody, which allowed him to sneak away the real fruit, and then Shanks almost caught him, and he hid it in his mouth, and then Shanks surprised him, causing him to swallow it. And he intended to steal that and a treasure map. And the incident led to him dropping the treasure map in the water after he swallowed the fruit, and he jumps in the water and couldn't swim. And then Shanks jumps in and saves him, "Buggy, are you okay?" And Buggy's like, "I hate your ass so goddamn much. You're the worst thing that's ever happened to me." And he's like,
Hater of the year.
"That's my classic friend, Buggy the Clown. Let's get you back on board."
Yeah, so the thing I was going to point out about that his backstory right there is just from the very beginning, Buggy's been trying to find shortcuts.
Exactly. Buggy tries to find shortcuts. He doesn't have a higher motivation. He doesn't think, I want to become the king of the pirates. He literally is just, I will exert my strength where it will allow me to be top of the food chain. And that's why he's in this early portion of the One Piece story, because at this point they're in the East Blue, which is like the worst of like the oceans for power levels. This is where all of the suburbanites live, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like the boonies / like it's also pretty chill most of the time, you know.
Exactly. He blames Shanks like for all of this. And Luffy is like, that doesn't make any sense. You're kind of an asshole. And Buggy is like, you don't know shit about being a pirate, kid. But, like, do you notice anything different about the backstory? Every other backstory is tragic and results in the character's motivation being understood and therefore strengthening their resulting growth. Buggy is the first villain to get a flashback like this, and they use it to subvert that. For all the menace he showed, once we knew anything about him and the shallowness of his motivation, the fight changes. It went from being, this is a man who's a genuine threat to Luffy and them, and now it's more of a comedy routine.
Yeah, look at this petty clown of a man.
He isn't powerless, but his threat isn't respected anymore. The characters respect him less. Is that because the story literally makes a shallow character weaker? No, actually. Everything about Buggy makes sense. He was menacing when nobody could stand up to him. He is powerful in that sense. But he's the dark mirror to Luffy. Both men see treasure as being one of, if not the most important things. Buggy meaning literal gold and money, while Luffy's treasure is almost entirely metaphorical. Luffy lives and dies for his dream and his treasure, and will, like, do anything to accomplish that dream and promises to his friends. Buggy accumulates treasure and laughs at the dreams of others. He's the opposite. His motivations are less, and therefore he does not strive to be greater. It's an inevitability he would plateau at this level, strong enough to subjugate the ordinary, but not strong enough to face the extraordinary. He has no need to reach further. He was happy taking over the town until Luffy showed up. Lower motivations don't make the characters less deadly, but a side effect of not being motivated deeply is less strength for the character to draw upon. A character who is just doing it for the lulz won't be willing to risk their life. And Buggy simply wasn't. Once he got his ass beat, even though, like, I mean, Luffy might have killed him, that as far as Luffy knew, he pretty much was just happy to, like, escape with his life. Buggy isn't the same as Luffy in that regard.
Well, yeah. They don't beat him in the traditional sense either.
No, they don't. It sets up the power system of One Piece with the one thing that every power system needs also, when creativity is such a strong part of it. Limitations.
Yeah. People, one of the things Sando likes to say is people enjoy a magic system based on how much they understand it.
Yeah.
And so by understanding the limitations, you can understand the framework of which magic system works, and therefore understand be able to make predictions and try to expect what's going to happen, which allows subversion to happen at all, which allows further enjoyment.
Sanderson's first law.
I'm learning.
He's a smart guy. Yeah.
Slowly. I've only read like 2 of the books. I've been bojangling on the 3rd one.
But, like...
You're getting them. I'm slowly getting them.
If a character can use their power to do anything, the stakes of the story cannot be affected by what the character can do. And it's typically quite boring in that regard. We know eating the devil fruits makes you unable to swim, but give you an otherwise powerful ability generally. Luffy can't be hurt by round shot from the guns and cannons of this world. Hitting him with any blunt object does nothing. Punching and kicking is out too. He can be harmed by blades, but in order to make use of his power, he can't wear blade-proof armor. You know, he can't... If he stretches, the armor certainly doesn't. Buggy similarly can't be hurt by a great many sources. Blades can't harm him. He can separate and float apart from any point on his body. But also he has a catch. At least in some way, all of these characters' bodies are bound by a limitation that, like, has sort of a root in physics. He needs leverage to float. His feet need to be on solid ground or something that can support him. The limitations of powers you give characters aren't just weaknesses or kryptonites to exploit. They're intrinsic part of the world you expect us to live within and parameters we and the characters, therefore, would consider. Buggy's defeated because part of separating his body means leaving some stuff behind, and his head is like, needs to be where the action is, so that he can see to stab you right with his floating haunter hands. And once those parts are stolen, he can't get them back. really.
Sorry, I really liked Haunter Hands.
Yeah.
That's
his move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. They're Haunter Hands. I like this.
His power set really could allow him to overcome this obstacle. Like, you take his arms and legs, and, like, he should be able to get out of that. He could separate them. He could turn them into a Pringles pile that, like, shuffle out of the ropes. It's conceivable that he could get out of it. But Buggy wouldn't. His motivation isn't high enough. Every time he faces an obstacle, he tries to avoid it, not overcome it. Buggy is a man of shortcuts. Why would he increase his ability any further than he had to? And now that chicken has come home to roost, and he gets blasted off panel, defeated like Team Rocket. And technically speaking, because of how Luffy shot him just into the sea, Luffy probably was ready to just ice his ass. Like, yeah,
100%.
That's enough of you. Go swim.
Luffy's the type where it's like, even if his might not be his intent to, like, you know, actually like ice you, like he probably would also be like, well, that's not my problem. I'm not going to think about it past this point.
You shouldn't have been such an asshole that I had to punch you into the sky like Team Rocket. It's simply
blasting off again.
Yeah. Now, once Buggy's defeated, the townsfolk arrive on the scene, and it's like a Dragon Ball Z fight where half the buildings are destroyed and everyone's unconscious except for the main hero. And Luffy, once the townsfolk arrive, identifies himself as the pirate. Like, yeah, I'm a pirate. And they're like, the townsfolk are finally ready to fight back against Buggy and the pirates that are here because their mayor went to go, like, give his life to fight Buggy. They all found the motivation within themselves to go after the pirates. And Luffy, once he sees that they're ready to just, like, spear his ass, he kind of eggs them on. He's like, I am a pirate, and I did come here to steal. I stole something today, and I'm going to continue stealing. I love stealing. I'm a pirate.
That's kind of what I'm about, being a pirate.
Luffy runs away grinning. Because the townsfolk are good people who are doing this to protect their town and their mayor. Luffy's a big fan of people doing things in the service of protecting the ones they love. And frankly, he's not overly concerned with being run out of town. That's pirate shit, which he loves. He loves it.
He's having a great time. Look at him go.
And that is, like, in terms of the... I call this, like, the beginning of scaling for One Piece. Because this is the point at which we see the characters brought to scale. We know roughly how powerful they are physically, but more important, we know what each character is willing to go through and do now. Nami multiple times risked her life despite the fact that these guys are pirates who she ostensibly hates. Zoro, even while completely stabbed, picked up a massive steel cage and, like, caused himself to bleed out to save Luffy. Luffy, as soon as, like, he sees anybody, like, trying this kind of shit, just smacks their ass down. And to the point where he's fully, like, ready to launch Buggy into the sky and tell everybody, like, I'm a pirate, chase me. And then they steal Buggy's ship and they fuck off. And when you're writing something, after you've established what, like, the story is and who's going to be in it, at the very least, like, a couple of the main characters, the next thing you need to do is bring the story to scale. We now know what these characters are willing to do. We now know what we can expect villains to be doing. Because before it was, like, a crew that took advantage of one kid everyone was a dick to him. I mean, they were probably bullying and, like, ready to, like, kill his ass at any time, but that's very small potatoes. And then the next one we see is, like, a marine base where essentially the same thing is happening. A bad egg is a despot. We haven't really seen that there is, like, guys who are just fully pirates who are ready to be dickheads who are as strong as the main characters. The world has been brought to scale. We know what to expect now. There are going to be bad guys who have either equal or negative motivations, and they are as powerful as our main characters. And the only way that our main characters are going to defeat them are through their finding the strength within themselves through their own motivation and actually, like, expanding themselves. One Piece does this generally by, like, having a character cry and, like, we have a big, like, emotional scene. But it's very effective, especially in these early parts. The earlier that you can set scale and your thesis, the better. but your scale has to be set afterwards. And that's like the first hurdle that actually you must hurdle. Because the first 2 parts, Luffy didn't struggle at all. They just ran around punching guys, smiling and shit.
Yeah.
Now we have a sense of threat. We have a sense of what are the consequences of this world. Which leads us into our next arc where we're going to meet Usopp, and we're going to learn even more, and the power scale of tragedy increases further, and character motivations become even more intrinsic to themselves. Well, not even more intrinsic. We get more intrinsically motivated characters moving through the story. And that's why we love some of these characters. We don't necessarily know it when we think of yeah, that guy's really cool. He's cool because of who he is and what he got to do because of who he is.
That makes sense.
Buggy the Clown is
because Buggy is cool. He's an asshole in the sense he's a heel.
Yeah,
he's a great heel. You're cheering because fuck that guy.
He's such an asshole, but he is intrinsically motivated by other things that make him interesting to follow, but essentially boil down to his core tenet of Buggy's the worst, right?
Yeah, look at that bastard go, that stupid clown.
I feel like a lot of the Buggy too is just supposed to, maybe not in the beginning, but later on when he comes back, because he does come back.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he's supposed to inspire something. He's funny. That's the whole bit. But that when I watched it, I was like, if I had the chop fruit, I would be devastating.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point of his character.
Yeah, I know he has no imagination, and he shortcuts. I get it, but it's just I think it's supposed to inspire you too, to just be like, look at this asshole. You could do it so much better, couldn't you? And I'm like, yes, I could.
And then every time that Buggy shows up again, he gets a motivational increase, which makes him more powerful and more creative. When he shows up again, he uses the chop fruit to turn into a fucking go-kart.
Yeah.
And that's why we did that to the one guy in D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later when we see him again, he's able to fully fly.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
And he carries Luffy over a spike pit. Every time that his motivation increases, he gets more powerful. Importantly, a thing that happens with Buggy the Clown also is that his character power isn't fighting power. His character power comes from the kind of comedy that can be extracted from these subversions. Every time that we see him, it's sort of to subvert what Luffy's going through with, what if a dick went through something like that?
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
No, 'cause that's the entirety of the arc Impel Down.
Yeah.
It's the super mega ultra prison. And the Buggy's there, of course. And then it's him getting out of there is just Mr. Magoo shenanigans.
I love
it.
Because
and then following that, he becomes one of the most powerful pirates in the world with the largest naval force outside of the actual world government.
Not because he himself is powerful, is because
But he broke out of super prison.
He Magooed his way into getting super max prisoners to think he's stronger than
the
them.
guy. Yeah.
This guy is the guy. Did you hear he was on the Pirate King's crew with red-haired Shanks, who's so powerful that he cuts buildings. And this guy was just bros with him, and then later, Shanks sees him and is like, Buggy, my guy! And Buggy immediately is like, I hate you so damn bad.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's why Buggy's one of my favorite characters. Every time I see him, it is a treat.
Hater to the fucking end. Oh, man.
I guess the last thing I could say about Buggy, too, is that he's a clown. That nose is real, though.
Yeah, that's his nose, and he hates being laughed at.
That's hilarious.
That's what he had to lean into being Buggy the Clown, because he has just a natural clown nose.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
By the way, also, by virtue of his fruit, he could take it off.
Oh, wow. That's hilarious. I never thought about it like that.
But
all of his problems are his own making.
But he's too much of a hater to...
He's too much of a hater. Yeah.
He's too much of a hater to cut off his nose about his own face.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to figure it out.
He genuinely keeps it around and paints himself like a clown and everything, so that when someone laughs at him, he gets to use his floating hand to hold them in front of the cannon and shoot them with his special cannonballs, because he thinks that's rad.
God bless. And with that, we're going to end tonight's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the nature of this content, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. You can go and give me a follow on Blue Sky and Instagram, and you can support us on our Patreon. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.